Who would have thought I would be sitting here 2 weeks after the release of patch 6.2 telling you that we already have another patch coming for Wild Rift, this time Wild Rift patch 6.2b. That's 2 patches in the space of 2 weeks, which is absolutely insane. Never heard of before for Wild Rift. And in this patch, we've got even more champion changes, an item change, and also a summoner spell change that recently got changed from the boots enchant. So I'm really excited to go through these patch notes with you all to tell you all what's coming to Wild Rift tomorrow. I think some of these changes are going to excite you all a lot, especially the item change. So make sure you stay tuned to that one. But before then, we have the game modes coming to Wild Rift in the next few days. We have AAA ARAM, which I played a lot when it was released before, but that's coming back this time from July 31st to October 22nd. Arena's coming back, and also all random Earth. So if you want to get onto some game modes, I've been really enjoying ARAM in general at the moment, just kind of chilling and also trying to grind for the free Jinx skin. So I've been playing that a lot at the moment. So I'm really excited for AAA ARAM to return with all the augments and all the changes that they got coming to that game mode. In terms of champion change, oh no, some of you might be annoyed at this, and there was a lot of people in the comments, especially when Swain rework, where I kind of revealed what was happening with Swain's rework when it was supposed to come out in patch 6.2. And I do have to say that these patch notes are given to me by Riot before the patch is actually released and before the patch notes are publicly released. So if there are any last minute changes, then not really my fault, unfortunately. But we are getting Galio's rework before Swain's rework, which is a bit sad for me as well, because I was very excited to play Swain again, because Swain is one of my best mid laners and one of the champions that I have the most fun playing. But we'll have to wait a little bit longer for Swain. I still don't know when he's coming. I'm sorry. I'm sure a lot of you are laughing right now that, oh, Stuart revealed Swain rework in patch 6.2, but now we're 2 weeks later and Galio's rework's coming out before Swain. It's going to be mean. I know it already. It's going to be mean. But anyway, let's take a look at Galio's rework and let's see what they're changing. Overall, they said that the TLDRs, they want to make Galio tank. See, I have Swain in my head now. They want to make Galio tank more of a thing rather than the one-shot build that he's building at the moment. A lot of people are going like Infinity Orb away in Soul Steal and Death Gap, just going for one-shot Galio with that type of build, but they're trying to change that a little bit. Let's take a look, see what they're changing. For the passive, the cooldown is being increased to now be 5 seconds at every single rank, but now you gain attack speed when the passive is active. So that extra auto attack, or that empowered auto attack, is now going to happen a bit quicker. Now also, when an ability hits an enemy champion or an epic monster, it reduces the Colossal Smash's cooldown by 3 seconds, and each ability can only trigger this once. So if you land your second ability, or even your first ability or your third ability, it's going to reduce the cooldown by 3 seconds. This is actually really valuable, and actually in my opinion better than the cooldown that it was before, because with Galio it's all about your engage with your third ability and even your second ability. When you use your auto attack, you can then channel your second ability for a few seconds, land that second ability, and then your passive is going to be back up again. So you'll be able to auto attack and deal that extra bit of damage. I think this is actually going to be more helpful for AP burst Galio rather than tank Galio. So I'm a little bit worried about what direction they were actually thinking in terms of the passive. For the damage, they have nerfed the base damage a little bit though, and also the AP ratio has gone down from 50% down to 45%, but this damage doesn't really make a lot of difference. And it also still scales with your bonus magic resist. So passive number, not really changing. This is the big part with the passive, which in my opinion is more of a buff than anything else, because with Galio, you always want to land your abilities. And to be honest, if you don't land your abilities, then you're going to be pretty useless. But it does mean you have to hit your abilities now to actually reduce the cooldown. If you don't hit your abilities, then you have to wait 5 seconds to actually deal more damage. For the second ability, you still take reduced damage from magic damage and physical damage. However, the numbers have been changed. I don't think the base, none of the base values have changed at all. They've all stayed the same. The big thing now is the ability power is going down from 5% to 4% and from 2.5% down to 2%. The bonus magic resist is staying the same across the magic and the physical damage. But now the big thing is that the magic damage and the physical damage now scale with bonus health. So it incentivizes you more to build more health to actually benefit from the Shield of Duran reduction in terms of the magic damage and the physical damage. This is going to be a nice buff to Galio support when you build items like Warmogs, Yordle's Trap, Thornmail, anything like that, any items that gives you any sort of HP. You can also go for Rod of Ages now on Galio. I think Rod of Ages is going to be a great item because not only do you get a lot of ability power, and you also get the mana to help you out a little bit with that as well, but also you get a lot of health. So it will help you with the reduced magic damage and reduced physical damage, but it's also still going to help you with the damage overall as well. So I think we might be seeing a lot more Rod of Ages coming in for Galio, since we have buffs to the bonus health coming on through with the reduced reduction on the physical damage and also the magic damage. The ability's initial range has been increased, so at the start of the ability, while the total range of the charge time has remained unchanged. So it's allowing you to now tap the ability to get increased range, which not a lot of people do anyway. Some people prefer to charge it for a bit longer, so you can taunt for a lot longer, so you can land your other abilities as well, but it's a nice quality of life change. This ability now does no longer deal damage to minions and jungle monsters, and the challenge can also be interrupted when Galio is crowd control. This is a big thing when you was clearing minions in the mid lane. Usually what you do is use your second ability and your first ability, and then the empowered auto attack from Colossal Smash, and you'll be able to clear the wave instantly. Now you won't be able to do that anymore. Now you actually just deal more damage to minions and jungle monsters with your third ability, but it's a lot riskier to use your third ability. And also your third ability does nowhere near as much AoE damage as what your second ability did before. So you do get a lot less wave clear in the mid lane now, with your second ability not dealing any damage, and now it's focused more on just taunting champions rather than dealing damage to minion waves. And also the challenge being interrupted is kind of incentivizing you to again build more tank, because if you do miss out and if you don't land your taunt, then it's very difficult to land your auto attacks and your other abilities to try and one-shot someone as Galio. This was such an important part for Galio's kit when you're playing more of a one-shot build. So definitely, I feel like some of these changes are definitely more lean towards actually the AP build being stronger, like the passive, for example. But there are some changes in here that are definitely they're trying to shift up a little bit. We're trying to make tank Galio be more of a thing. But again, I think it's just to do with the items as well. I think items like Infinity Orb and Awakened Soul Stealer are just so powerful right now. And Galio is still a champion that's still going to do a lot of damage next patch, you know, even with the slight nerfs to the damage on the passive. His Q still does the same amount of damage. His second ability is still going to do the same damage, but your wave clear just might not be as big as what it was before. In terms of sets, they are buffing, the base armor and the base health. I don't think really Set needed any more base armor and base health. I think he was already very tanky in the Baron lane. I think his problem is actually his damage side of things. Set is one of the most annoying champions to actually get out of lane because of his passive, and also Second Wind being a very strong combo, kind of similar to Garen as well. I don't see the reason to really buff the base armor and buff the health. I mean, it's going to help you with trades early on, but I think he needed more damage to try and help with his early game rather than more tankiness. But maybe this will help a little bit with survivability in the lane. But as I mentioned, with his passive and also his and also Second Wind before, he already had that survivability. I feel like he just needs that little bit more damage. Talon definitely needed a buff. I keep saying this already like so many times, but AD assassins at the moment are pretty weak in the meta, and Talon is actually one of the worst AD assassins out there at the moment. These buffs though are very nice. The bleeding base damage has now been increased. I believe this is back to how the numbers were before, because I believe this did get nerfed when Talon was pretty popular and very strong, but the bleed damage has been increased, and now you also get more bonus movement speed when you kill an enemy. When the enemy is killed while being bled, which has gone from 40% up to 50%. This is going to be a big buff to help him clear through the jungle, but also just help him with damage in general. The first ability, the bonus attack range duration during the cast, again, has been increased from 1 second to 1.5 seconds, and the cooldown reduction for killing target has gone from 50 seconds up to 65 seconds. This isn't really too much, to be fair. I don't think this is too much of a buff. I think the next big buff is definitely the rate going down by 1 second at every single rank. Again, Talon is pretty much always going to be a champion that's going to be played in the jungle, just with his kit and how he's played, with the jumps on his second ability, with his ultimate turning him invisible, and especially at the moment with AD champions being very difficult to play in the mid lane because of the way they changed the minions in patch 6.2. It's now a lot harder to kill minions in the mid lane with AD champions, and it incentivizes more AP mages to play in the mid lane now. So I think it's very difficult for AD champions to play in the mid lane, but again, this is going to help Talon jungle a lot, especially with the bleed damage and also reduction of the second ability. These next two changes, I'm sure you can tell by the name, I'm going to be very, very excited about. People who kept saying that Varus is overpowered, Varus is very strong at the moment, it's the most BS thing I think I've ever heard in my entire life. This champion was so hidden behind, like, you playing an enchanter support. Okay, if you play like Lulu with Varus, or you play Yuumi with Varus, or you play Milio, of course the champion's going to be stronger. You can put any champion, any AD carry with these enchanter supports right now, and they're going to be very, very powerful. But Varus as a champion is so much weaker than what he was before because of changes to Essence Reaver, because of changes to his passive. He needed to get buffed, but these buffs are, I tell you what, they're pretty big. They're pretty big. Base health going up from 570 to 600 is very nice because Varus is one of the lowest range AD carries in the game in terms of his auto attack range. So him getting a little bit of health to help him with trading during laning phase is quite nice. The AD is now going up by 0.4 per level. So you're going to be getting around an extra 4 AD at level 10, which is quite nice. First ability being buffed. This first ability now does barely any damage at all. You don't really do this too much. The only reason you do this is when you use like your second ability, or you proc your blighted stacks on your second ability, and then you can reduce the cooldown to just use your first ability over and over again. But because Varus is more on hit, these numbers mean absolutely nothing at all, and I don't think this is going to actually change or buff like lethality Varus, for example. The big change is to do with blighted quiver. Look at this base damage from 15, 23, 31 to 40 to now 20, 30, 40, and 50. You get an extra 11 on hit damage now with your second ability. And this base damage is just from your auto attacks. That's it. All you need to do is level up blighted quiver and you get this extra auto attack damage. That is the base damage that's going to be coming through. And on hit Varus is now the best way to play Varus because the way that his passive works, where you gain more AD and ability power based on how much bonus attack speed you get. And now with the buff to blighted quiver as well, meaning that your auto attacks, you know, you're going to be doing 11 more damage with your auto attacks. And that doesn't include the scaling and everything else that you have with blighted quiver. So you're going to do more on hit damage. And also the cooldown has been reduced for blighted quiver, but the only time that you really use blighted quiver as an ability now is when you want to use your first ability. You never use blighted quiver to deal extra auto attack damage because that's no longer a thing. You just use blighted quiver just before you're about to use your first ability, and then detonate blighted quiver with your first ability or even your third ability in the end. So really, really big buff to Varus. This is really going to help. This is definitely going to help. This, in my opinion, doesn't make too much of a difference, but this is the big buff right here. The on hit damage being buffed, which is really, really nice. Zeri, I think, is... I don't know about Zeri. I think Zeri was a good champion. Again, probably a champion that is hidden behind enchanter supports. But I think in general, Zeri's rework was actually a big benefit to her, in my opinion. She did lose her passive, which gave her a lot of survivability. But with Bloodthirster in, that definitely helped with her survivability. But I guess she was lacking a little bit in terms of the damage side of things. So they are buffing her auto attack damage. Her living battery is, her passive is now her auto attack damage. So her auto attacks are getting a buff, which is going to be an extra 4 AD every single level, or 4 base damage with her auto attacks every single level. And now she's going to be getting, and now it's going to be scaling with even more attack damage, which again is going to go up to 120% attack damage. So auto attacks now are going to be dealing a lot more damage. You still go for the same build where you go for Bloodthirster and Essence Reaver. And it's going to help with Zeri for trading. I think her first ability definitely got a buff last patch. Her third ability and even her ultimate, I think, got a buff as well. So I think overall, Zeri's rework was actually quite nice. And I actually prefer Zeri's rework now to what it was before. And this buff, of course, is going to help her just deal even more damage with her auto attacks. Zyra was just really annoying to play with, and Singed as well. By the way, they are completely gutting Singed. I'll talk about it in a second, but look at these numbers. They are completely gutting Singed, which is absolutely bonkers to me. But before that, Zyra is pretty annoying to play against at the moment because of what happened to Liandry's Torment. The Yordle's Liandry's Torment is a very, very strong item right now, and Zyra in general is just a very annoying champion to play against with her plants and her abilities and her one-shot potential, especially with her ultimate. It's very, very annoying. So they're nerfing some of the damage on the first ability, where the base damage is going down and the ability power ratio is also going down. The C duration, now this you might mean this might mean to some people the seed duration as in the plant duration, but this is actually not the plant duration. This is actually the duration that you have when you activate your second ability, when you put a seed on an enemy champion. So this nerf isn't actually that big. This is completely fine. I think the nerf to the first ability is definitely warranted. The poke in the early game with Liandry's was absolutely disgusting. Base armor, though, is very interesting. This is kind of incentivizing you more to play support Zyra to help you a lot more in support. This doesn't really help you that much in mid lane. As I mentioned, mid lane champions are not really playing AD at the moment because the way minion waves work, and mage is a lot more popular in the mid lane. But this base armor basically tries to incentivize you more to play Zyra support. So we have to see what direction that takes. But I think Zyra will be completely fine. There are no changes to Liandry's Torment, so that item is going to be very, very strong. As I mentioned, Singed. I've only seen Singed like a few times in my games. The thing is with Singed is that he's relatively weak during the early game. He doesn't really do too much. He kind of just like runs around with his poison and tries to clear waves. He gets really annoying once he gets like 2 or 3 items. Once he gets like Liandry's, Rylai's, Deathcap, or even Infinity Orb now as well, being very, very annoying. I think he just runs around and he's just annoying. I feel like he doesn't make a lot of impact though. I don't know. He has a pretty high win rate over in China. And like I said, these numbers are going to absolutely gut Singed, in my opinion. Like, they're going to gut him completely. Like, from 55 base damage on his first ability down to 44, it's crazy. And also, now you're losing 20 base damage on your third ability as well. So, yeah, Liandry's Torment, as I said, not being changed. But this is definitely going to hurt Singed a lot in the early game with his wave clear, but also with trading with the fling and also his late game damage as well. A lot of you are going to be excited about this next change. Well, actually, no, not this change, but also this change especially. These are the last 3 changes that will be happening, by the way. These are just extra game mode changes. First one is Blade Ruin King, by far one of the worst items in the game. No champion right now in the game builds Blade Ruin King. Even on-hit champions at the moment are skipping Blade Ruin King. They're building Nash's Tooth instead. They're building Terminus. They're building Runans. They're building Wit's End still. You know, Blade Ruin King is not being used. So Blade Ruin King definitely warranted a buff. I don't think this buff is going to be enough, though, in my opinion. It might be pretty okay. It just depends on what champions you play against. Of course, if you play against more tanks, then it's going to be more beneficial to you. But in general, it needed a buff, and I guess this is a step in the right direction. Bloodthirster nerf. Like it, this is a change that I think a lot of you will be excited about. Bloodthirster has been dominating the Rift at the moment. You think of any crit champion that's being played at the moment, any champion that can just benefit from crit in general, even like Rengar, Viego, Graves, Yone, Yasuo, and pretty much every single AD carry now is building Bloodthirster because this item was just way too strong for the value that you was getting. And people even said to me sometimes as well, sometimes you don't even build Bloodthirster on some champions. You're just completely inting if you're not building Bloodthirster in this previous patch. In the next patch, although I still think this item will be very strong. And the reason for that is because I don't think there's any other core item that can replace this item. The only other core item I can think of is Essence Reaver, but it's a very situational item. It only gets used on champions that uses abilities a lot, like Corki, like Lucian, but they're still going to build Bloodthirster as their second item. The AD being reduced from 50 to 45 is completely fine. This still gives you one of the highest AD numbers out of any other item in the game, and the shield has been lowered by 30 shield throughout the game, 30 in the early game and 20 shield when you get into the late game. I don't think this is enough. I still think Bloodthirster is going to be very, very popular among a lot of AD carries because there's not really any items that you can replace it with. And I still think it's going to be very annoying to play against because you still get the attack speed, you still get a very strong lifeline passive, you still get the extra physical ramp that's going to help you with survivability as well. So even though Bloodthirster does get nerfed, and I think a lot of you will be excited, I think you should expect to see Bloodthirster still in every single one of your games that you will be running. And finally, Teleport Spell. This is a change that I called on day one. I called this on day one. As soon as this was changed from a boost enchant to a summoner spell, I said that this is way too long of a cooldown and no one is going to build it because the value is just not there. By the time you go back to base, by the time you walk back to lane, teleport would be completely useless. They're now reducing this by 50, 60, 70, 80, 30 seconds, which I guess is okay now. It's now gone from 3 minutes to 2 minutes 30 seconds. I still think it's too long. I probably think it needs like a 2-minute cooldown for it to be useful. Even then, I think 2 minutes is still very, very long. I guess it can be quite annoying if the cooldown does get too low because you can just teleport in other lanes. I've seen teleport a few times be useful. The amount of times I've seen teleports happen. I think a game that happened a few days ago to me, a Rumble teleported at the enemy tower and bot lane and just used Rumble ultimate on me and flashed on me. And I was like, what the hell what has happened? It's like I'm playing PC League now with what's happening with teleport. But yeah, this definitely warranted a buff. I like the buff as well. Again, I still don't, excuse me, I still don't think this is good enough. I think this needs to go down to like 120 seconds for it to be useful. Games are so quick right now. 2 minutes and 50 seconds, you know, by the time the teleport comes back up, the game might already be lost. So I don't think this is warranted. I think it's much better to take a combat summoner spell and you can win the lane rather than using teleport to go back to base and come back to lane. And then you have some game mode changes, which is just some changes to, I think, some augments to AAA RAM and some other stuff as well. If you do want to read through this, you can do. And then we also have the release of Space Groove Lux. Overall, I'm pretty excited about this, these patch notes. Bloodthirster, I still think is going to be core, like I mentioned. Blade Rune King might be built on some champions now. We'll have to wait and see. Singe buff is kind of whatever. Zyra buff is very nice. Zeri buff is very, very nice. I'll definitely be playing her. And Varus buff is also very nice. The other champions I don't really care too much about. Galio AP I still think will be a thing, but we'll have to see if Galio tank will be a thing. Just let you all know, I will be kind of AFK over the next few days until Sunday. I will try and stream on Sunday. If not, I'll probably stream the new patch on Monday. I do have my granddad's funeral on Friday, so I'm spending time with the family over the next few days. So yeah, I'm going to be taking a little bit of time to myself with my family and take a break. So this patch has not really come at the best time for me because the patch releases tomorrow, which I won't be here unfortunately, but hopefully Sunday and Monday I'll be able to stream on the new patch and show you all some of the changes and try and test out some of these changes as well with, of course, Varus and Zeri, which I'm very, very excited about. But as always, thank you for tuning into the video. Hopefully you enjoy the new patch. Let me know what you think of the new patch down in the comments. As always, until next time, stay safe and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.